Welcome back to the Blue Review, and CY is back today. Thank you very much for coming back, CY. We missed you yesterday. Trav was had to sit in for you. It's okay. All right, the Blue Review is always presented by Los Angeles International Airport, where changes are arriving daily to help reduce traffic, save travelers time, and transform the travel experience. And one thing that we got to transform with the Dodgers, CY, is the starting pitching. I know there's a lot. It's the middle of the season, and there's going to be the ups and the downs. We've talked about it a bunch, but all the guys they've kind of brought into here have started to fall back to earth. Tony Gonsolin has fallen back to earth. Julio Urias, it was his first time back on Saturday, and so he was not the best. But Emmett Sheehan and Bobby Miller are both two guys that have kind of returned to the form of rookies to be that matter. I mean, they're not going to be perfect every time out, and they've kind of shown that they are going to give up about 4 or 5 runs a game. And that's kind of who they are at this moment. Clayton Kershaw on the IL. And everything else that's happening, no more Dustin May for this year. Most likely not going to get Walker Buehler back. There's a lot of things going on. They need to go get a starting pitcher.
They need a little bit more than one starting pitcher. But let me ask you this. If I asked you, this isn't going to change outside of, let's just say, one person, would you accept that for what it is and thus change what you think the end road is here? Or what part of this happens? Because there's a certain part of me that feels like, yeah, a lot of these games are close. But remember, this is what we thought was going to be the case anyway. Turning over your pitching staff and getting guys that are iffy does not necessarily make this team a ton better in terms of who is available. Now, this is going to require some massive in-season scouting from the Dodgers. But what my point is that if this team can make the playoffs with something close to this because of how good the team is versus risking, let's just say, bringing in somebody who really does fall apart, and I'm not going to say messing up the flow of the squad, but let's just say whatever moves that don't work, it's kind of a catch-22 because you're not being disloyal to the guys that you've had. May is hurt. Buehler's hurt. There's just nothing you can do about that. However, at the same time, these guys are going to have to improve for this to be a World Series team anyway. And so I do wonder whether or not, the moves, which are going to have to happen, are necessarily going to improve this team's chances overall, because you can't overhaul 4 guys. You can get maybe one. If you get a second, you're lucky. And that's going to be a trickiest part.
So if you get the second, I think that's where it's going to be. So I think that, Clayton Kershaw is going to be Clayton Kershaw. He's going to be great when he comes back. This is that middle of the year time where he's like, I need a few days off.
Nap time for Clayton Kershaw. Fair enough.
That totally fine. So I expect him to be back and being at his normal self when the playoffs come around. I also think that Urias will kind of figure himself out, but getting that 3rd overall pitcher, that's a guy that can be a frontline starter. I'm not going to give you names. I mean, we've talked about Corbin Burns in the past, who's a guy. But like that type of guy is somebody that needs to happen. Like they need to bring somebody in. And this is Andrew Friedman does it. He does it all the time. Every year. He always finds that one dude. You're like, oh man, I didn't even know that guy was on the table. And they still bring him in. So I have faith that there will be somebody that will be. And really, if you have 2 pitchers, you want 3 good, strong, solid pitchers in the playoffs. But if you have 2, you can kind of make it through. So I think Kershaw and somebody else, or Urias and somebody else, if Kershaw's kind of back to it, somebody is going to step up in the playoffs, and they're going to grab that person.
Well, here's the thing. You might have to get rid of Urias to get anybody worth quality. That's the other part of this that you've got to sort of consider. And I'm going to say this from a fan standpoint, which is, would you rather ride with these guys because you thought they were pretty good? Or do you want to get rid of likable humans that you have a little bit of faith in to see if you can find something else? Like, this is an interesting make or break moment right now, I think, for what this franchise is doing. What the team's concerns are different from what I think the average fan looks at this like. If you've got to trade 5 guys who all of a sudden you're like, wait a second, what happened to him? What happened to him? What happened to him? Then you're in a mercenary situation. I don't know. And then you don't win as well. I don't know that the value add on that is what one might think it is. So I agree with you. You can get by with 2. We've seen this happen, but who that second pitcher is going to be is a massive question, because when you're battling it out against the Pirates night in and night out, it's clear that the level overall has to go up. That said, the bullpen was dicey last night, but they pulled it out. Gregory, what did you think about that?
Yeah, no, I mean, the bullpen has actually been a lot better. Like, Evan Phillips blew a game the other night. I did not blame that on Evan Phillips at all, because that was his 3rd day in a row. And Dave had said before the game that he wasn't even available.
I was surprised he even threw that night. Yeah.
He said that he was fine because, of course, what do? You say you're fine. But that was 3 nights in a row. We did not need to see him on 3 nights in a row. I would hopefully somebody else, but also guys like Ryan Brazier and Daniel Hudson were also unavailable last night or 2 nights ago. So they had to go to him, and it didn't work because it wasn't going to work. They had to kind of work through somebody, and now Brusdar Graterol is a little injured. But I thought that Daniel Hudson did something that was really, really impressive. Him and Ryan Brazier both did it. Now, granted, they both loaded the bases. Do that. Not okay. Nobody out, load the bases, and they got out of it clean. I think that being able to go in there and show that you can get out of those situations at this point will bode well for the bullpen moving forward, especially Daniel Hudson. Daniel Hudson is a huge piece to add back into this bullpen.
He's major, but this gets to the larger thing of what I'm saying, which is these games are going to be tight. A lot of Dodger Blue fans are used to kind of cruising. And so the idea that everything is kind of by the skin of your teeth makes you feel, oh, we got to do something. Oh, we got to do something. Ain't got to change everything necessarily. This is going to be a hard fought season. This has been a theme of what we've discussed all year. And so, yes, I do appreciate the job that Daniel Hudson did last night. I mean, that was just a heck of a moment, but people are hitting us up on Twitter like, oh, that was too close for comfort. That might be the comfort zone this season for the Dodgers. These games will be tight. That's a win. But my point is that that's how a lot of teams do it. And that's how a lot of teams get through it. And the Dodgers are learning that this year.
So I think that once you get that frontline starter that they're absolutely going to be getting at some point, that changes a lot of that stuff. Just because when you have multiple guys that are pitching well, it kind of just filters down below. When you have like your frontline guys like the Uriases and the Gonsolins and Kershaw not being there and they're struggling, everybody else kind of tends to struggle also. It's just how these things work for whatever reason. So I think that if they start seeing it, then they want to outdo the next guy and they outdo the next guy. So it'll work out. I really just think that the biggest overall thing they need, yes, they need bullpen arms, and yes, they need to probably do something maybe at short, even though Rojas is starting to find his bat a little bit. That's a whole nother thing. But second base, there's certain things that can happen from the offensive end. The biggest thing, starting pitching, frontline starter. That's what I want. That's what we need, and figure out some bullpen arms.
And a partridge in a pear tree.
Yes. It's going to happen, CY. I guarantee you it's going to happen.
That's why we watch the baseball.
Andrew Friedman. Say it every single day if I have to.
Okay. By the way, it's getting a little long in the tooth on the calendar, as they say. I'm getting on a plane today to go to Seattle for the All-Star game, which we'll talk about tomorrow on this program. But I just mean that calendar's getting tighter for all these changes that you want to be happening. So hopefully your boy Friedman can pull it off.
Absolutely. All right. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Thanks a lot, CY. Thanks a lot to the LAX, and we'll talk to you when you
I'll be at LAX today. See you.